I thought we were going to have a good weekend too, because I mean, we got a game 7 in the World Series, and then Sunday the Chiefs are 1.5 favorites in Buffalo. Now we're here.
Yep. Now we're here. We do probably need to start off the show by reminding everybody that the Broncos are the sole leader in the West, and the Chiefs, they're down and out right now. I mean, I don't know, like, are they ever out? They're kind of like the Baltimore Ravens in the North. Like, they're not out probably until like maybe.
I was going to say even more so than the Ravens, because I mean they've won the division now for like a decade straight, and like 8 years of that with a bullet. So I mean it is kind of interesting. They're 5-4 right now, sitting there with, I mean, Denver. Whatever. Congratulations.
Hey, don't worry. My dad and I are holding on by a string. We are on.
Oh no, you got. They've got 2 games against Kansas City. One next week, one on Christmas.
Yes, I was looking at the schedule. It's about to get. We still have our 2 games with the Raiders, but then again, in this division, the Raiders always tend to pop up and just surprise you.
Just like Pete Carroll would, a team of his that you think is down and out at the end of the year. It's just like, all right, let's get it rocking.
All right, let's start off with basically like. There's a couple of things that we need to talk about real quick, just kind of before we got into the games. I thought it was really interesting. Something kind of went viral clip. Charlie Ursay Gordon, who is now she owns the Colts.
The governor, now. Essentially. Yeah, the governor.
Right. She wears a headset, and I knew about this from last year, but again, this always tends to come up. And her answer, she always gets asked about this in press conferences, and her, this is her way of oversight, is that she just wants to know. This isn't one of those where it's meddling. She's not telling anybody what to do. She's not doing anything. But I thought her deal with this is like, this is essentially her BS meter. So who's at fault? What's the communication like during this? I think that it's interesting. This is almost like a Jerry Jones non-comp. Like, that's what I put in our notes, is like, Jerry Jones is basically like, I played, therefore I know type of.
I played BC, therefore I know. And I think it's kind of interesting. I think it was always my favorite part about like the Mike Holmgren coaching tree, whereas like he cuss out the position coach as opposed to the actual player, because obviously that player's built up a relationship with that position coach, and there's a certain amount of like, I'm going to fight for that guy now. And I think Carly Ursay Gordon, like going into the offseason, like, I mean, our wide receiver sucked this year. Well, was it our wide receiver coach? Actually, was it this individual little thing? And now she has the headset on. And I mean, I say now, but it's a thing that she's done for years. But like, it's a thing that she's actually sitting there week by week taking notes of like, nope, it was actually this guy who didn't get the call in, who didn't understand this. And so it really changes the organization from top to bottom. And so far, at least from a season's worth, from this year at least, it's working.
Yeah, and I think that she's approaching it in the correct way of like, hey, I'm an outside source. I'm listening to this. Hey, the communication piece on this play, I took a note. What was going on?
It's a one-way street. I'm only listening until it is time for me to give my full analysis at the end of the season, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of football coaches being in this, like, you're basically in a foxhole. Like, sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees. I mean, there's a reason why that saying is so cliche, but it really is true. Like, a lot of these coaches, our communication process, the way that we've called things, there's nobody on the outside. I think that this is going to change the NFL within the next decade. Is there's so many billionaires joining these franchises, right? So we're starting to see a little bit of either
that private equity money.
Private equity is getting in. Like, I think the Bengals probably need to do that. The Cardinals for sure need to do that. I know we saw this with the Raiders. So if you're a fan and you just don't understand, or if you've never paid attention to this, a lot of the older owners are poor, and they're cash poor. They're not poor, they're cash poor. And they're cash poor because they just own, it's basically everything's in.
It cost them $50 to start the team in 1948, and like that's the only thing they've done.
Exactly. So there's no equity. Well, the way that teams are now doing it, basically like the money ball of the NFL right now, but basically what the Eagles have been doing. We talked about the contracts, I think earlier in the summer, of just basically all this dead money contracts, or these kind of voided years contracts. Well, you have to have these in escrow, essentially. It's like, we'll just pay you these huge sums. Well, I think what's happening is a lot of these billionaires, they have these consultants come in and just look at like, hey, look at our marketing department, look at our shipping or our logistical department. Like where are the deficiencies? There's not a lot of that going on in football. And I think that this is a really cool thing that we saw. And I think that we're going to see more of this in the next decade. Then we had, and I stayed out of this, Felix, just because one, I don't do social media trolling and I don't do social media hot takes. I don't do the social media.
Not with that guy, at least.
No, definitely. But we did have the great quarters debate that always tends to pop up. It was oddly enough, it popped up the middle of the season, but we had the Twitter beef between Mina and Coach Brown. So if you were not on social media or under a rock, you didn't see this. Quarters is really hard to define because everybody teaches it completely different. Then you have the semantics kings who want to argue with you with country 4 versus, which is basically like zone 4, which it has not been played probably in a decade, versus match 4. And then then you throw in the Saban curveball, which is like, I did a big Twitter thread of like, hi, I'm Cody Alexander, run match quarters. Like I've done this before, like trying to stay out of the whole beef, but cover 4 versus quarters is completely like yes, it's synonymous. Most people are going to interchange them. I would argue that nobody even says cover 4 anymore. Cover 4 to me is like Madden. Like it's just like,
yes, you saw it on the game. I was like, fine, just go coach suggestions. Boom, square.
Yes. And so like and this is what is Pandora's box is you have so many different shades between like man match or basically blitz coverage, which is like the Narduzzi Pitt stuff that is really popular. You have the man match systems within Saban, which I have said that's its own universe. That's its own thing. Like
Kirby's got his own universe inside of that too.
Don't bring that in. Then you have Lanning and his adjustments that he's made with Oregon. So it's like, then you have Jeremy Pruitt and what he's done. Like, please, let's just not bring that in. And then you have the different levels of zone match and you have the country stuff. So at the end of the day, quit going after women in the media. Like they're here to stay. Like it is what it is. Like whether you want to listen to it or not, like I feel like at the end of the day, like that's what the argument is. And then it evolved into
especially not her, not Mina Kimes of all people in media in general, male, woman, whatever else in between. Like it's Mina. What are we doing here? Well, and there's 18 other reasons why Jason Brown is a joke in the football world.
Yes. And so like the other thing too is like that's also another thing. Like if there's one female you go after, like that's the wrong one. Like she's so much love. I've met her several times. Very, very nice. She's a fan of Match Quarters. So hopefully I don't know if she listens to this or not, but it's very nice.
She listens. Let's just put it out there in the universe. She listens.
Don't go after Mina. All right. The only real news in terms of trade deadline, of course, it comes from the Eagles. They go get Jalen Phillips and they get Jaire Alexander. Now, Jaire Alexander couldn't even get on the field at Baltimore, and they definitely need a corner. They needed it,
yeah.
So I'm not necessarily there, but that just shows you, and I've kind of mentioned this on social media before, they do not want to play Adoree Jackson, and they definitely don't want to play Keely Ringo. So they're like, hey, let's see if Jaire Alexander, we can rehabilitate his career. He basically needs to just turn into Darius Slay. That's it. You just need to turn into Darius Slay. We've got the nickel. You don't even have to play in base. We just need you to be Darius Slay, field corner. I think Jalen Phillips gives them more rotational pieces. If they can figure out the pressure right now, I think they're like 18th in pressure. If they can figure that out and raise that to maybe top 10 like they were last year, I think now I'm comfortable saying they're a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, and it's just a guy, Vic Fangio, getting his guys, getting more chess pieces, and just another body to throw in pass rush. You always need that. Going to the college game, Arch Manning, very good against Vanderbilt. They take a big jump in the polls, and I have it in the notes that they're still alive with the CFP. Well, they're the number 13 team in the polls as things currently stand. How do you feel about Texas it's a little beyond the midway point of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think really Sark just needed to figure out what Manning could do. I think he was trying to basically run the Quinn Ewers package with the quarterback run game. And then he realized, okay, this is a different type of quarterback. I'm going to have to adjust my system. I mean, kudos for Sark. I think I saw somebody on Twitter that I follow that follows the Texas, like basically has turned him into a yak, like yards after catch king, which again, we've mentioned here before, this offense is more this is more Miami Dolphins than it is anything else. Like this is, I mean, you even talk to the guys at the Dolphins, they'll say like, yeah, like if we're watching college tape, we watch Sark. It's basically the same offense, just pared down for or adjusted for the college level. I think that they're going to be okay. If this ends up being like the arch that we see for the and just getting the ball to the guys and let him run for a little bit, I think that they could end up being dangerous. I don't know. I still think that they're probably a year away. They've got to figure out some things. I think they're a couple of players away. I think Arch one more year. I think we're going to be good.
And that makes sense for Manning staying till his senior year. Like, I think we were all excited for, like, I mean, me included. Like, I think we were all excited for Arch Manning to be Arch Manning. It was going to take 6 games for him to become what we thought he was going to be, or at least a hint of it. And then next year, a Manning fully developed 4 years in college, it'll make more sense, at least for him to come out. Moving forward.
Well, I'll just say this before we move forward. It was always going to be a long-term deal at Texas, period, end of story.
Yeah. Penn State, they were able to knock around a little bit with Ohio State for a little bit, but, I mean, they've kind of packed up shop there. They're onto the head coaching search. Georgia, they hold off Florida, and then so how do you feel about how the complete – and the top 12 is going to obviously change way more than it probably should or than what we're expecting right now. So how do you feel at least how we're in the eliteness of college football, the elite teams like your Ohio States, your teams like Texas and up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, Ohio State right now, how do you defend them?
Carnell Tate is ridiculous.
Well, and
Carnell, like, I mean, I know Jeremiah Smith is phenomenal, and Julian Sand is a legit. He's going to be a pro prospect whenever his time comes. But Carnell Tate is that extra cherry on top of like, oh yeah, you can't do anything ever.
No, I think really there's 3 teams. I'm waiting for Texas A&M to turn back into Texas A&M at some point. I know they're.
I believe in my boy Colin Klein.
I know. I like the thing that it's funny because if you ask around the house, there's like I always tell the kids, hey, there's like 3 teams that you can never play for. You can't ever play for Tech. You can't ever play for A&M. You can't ever play for OU. I said, other than that, you can go wherever you want. It's just when you're a Baylor guy, you just can't.
That makes sense.
You can't like A&M and really like the whole thing that goes with them. It's a lot deeper than just that. But I think if you look at the top 10, Ohio State to me by far, I know Indiana's getting a lot of votes, but I think Ohio State by far, that might be almost like a playoff game before a playoff game if both of those teams, which I think they will, they'll both be undefeated. I like Alabama. They've kind of figured it out. Georgia to me, I don't know if they can win. I don't know if they can go the whole distance. I just don't. That offense and really the defense is kind of falling. We talked about it before. Just they're not able to collect defensive players anymore. Oregon to me again, that's a team that could be sneaky. Ole Miss, I like the Chambliss kid. I think he gives you a different element. You go to BYU and Tech, we're going to figure those guys out here in the next month. But I think at the end of the day, this is an Ohio State, Indiana team. That those are the 2 teams. I think that at the end of the day is it. And if A&M continues to play the way that they do, that to me is the dark horse. Which, God, please. There's a whole everybody outside. Like if you are not an A&M fan, you are just praying that they don't win a national championship because it would just be unsufferable. I don't want to hear about it.
Hugh Freeze also got fired this weekend. He went 6-16 in the SEC over his 3 years, 2.5 or whatever at Auburn. So another job open in the coaching carousel, and I think it's kind of interesting if you're like in the SEC and you're going to fire your coach because LSU is going to get the top guy, or at least they're going to try to. I mean, and we can talk about the top 3-ish jobs here. LSU, I think, is the best job. Then Florida State after that. Those are depending on if Florida State comes open. And then Penn State after that, and it's got all the legit history behind that. But, even if the governor's a psychopath at LSU, is that the best job? It doesn't get better than that. And, Lane Kiffin's going to get offered $12 million, $15 million for it. and he's probably taking it, right?
Yeah, I mean, basically, he's going to the. I mean, if you're the AD at Ole Miss, you're going to your boosters and you're just saying, "Hey, look, whatever you can shell in, we're going to make him the highest paid coach to stay here." It's really going to come down to Kiffin. Does Kiffin want to go to LSU, or does he want to stay at Ole Miss? I think it's just going to come down to what he wants. LSU's the job that you legitimately could see, like you could see Saban coming out of retirement for that job.
That's the only, and like I'm the biggest. I hate when coaches come out of retirement. Like once you're retired, just sit down. Like especially in Saban's case, like you can't do much more to prove even more. But if he went back to LSU, like it's just like that feels right. Like even more, like I know him more at Alabama and all that stuff, but like Nick Saban at LSU feels right.
Yeah, and that to me is like, where do you rate these? I think the LSU, if Nick Saban would come out of retirement to go to LSU, which I think we could all, like, if you just thinking like, okay, he's at least thinking about it. Like he's going to Miss Terry and being like, hey, you want to go back to that?
Miss Terry might have to say no to that job. Miss Terry might have to say no.
It's free Raising Cane's for the rest of our lives. Like, if we, like, do you really want to say no to that? So to me, I think that that's the number one job. They're going to have the pick of the litter. I think the job that I think you fire Jane Franklin for a bunch of different reasons, but if you're Penn State, you're going to have to go probably a little bit. You've already lost on Cignetti. The one guy who I think you put in our notes, Bob Chesney. James Madison is a guy who is an East Coast guy. He was at Holy Cross. He's winning. This is NIL era. He's winning without all of those James Madison kids that went to Indiana. So to me, I think that that's definitely a guy who you have to go a different way about it. You need to have somebody that's in that Northeast footprint, but has proven that they can win. I think he's the one. I think that's an interesting job. I don't think Penn State's a big job as people think. Florida, to me, is a job that I don't know what.
It feels like it should be as good as LSU, but it's not.
It's not. And I really think, man, I don't know.
And LSU has the added factor of like, you're going to get fired even if you go like 10-1 in night games if you're Brian Kelly and the governor's a crazy person. And Florida's Florida, but it doesn't have all of that. It doesn't feel like it, at least, but it's still not as good of a job as LSU.
If there is a job Lane Kiffin takes, I think it's the Florida job, just because I think you're in Florida. You can get all the athletes. You pay NIL basically for your O-line, and you go out and you get O-line all throughout the SEC country. I think it'll be interesting. I agree with you. You put in our notes, Arkansas is overrated. UCLA is not the job. USC's the job. UCLA is like, I just feel like it's kind of like you probably should have went with Cal and Stanford. Like you're going to be the second fiddle. You're kind of the Chargers, right? Like
the colors work out. And you're kind of just like, you're there. We believe in you enough. Maybe.
USC is going to win the national title before you.
Exactly.
Rams are going
to. They're the Rams. They're
you know what I mean? That's that kind of deal. Oklahoma State, to me, I think if T. Boone Pickens was alive, he'd be doing exactly what Tech is doing right now, getting basically just saying just backing up the Brinks truck and just saying whatever you need, let's do it. He's not there. I just think that's kind of a middle job now in the Big 12, and especially after you see, look, Tech's got oil money, A&M's got oil money. Houston is the kind of the dark horse here if they can figure out NIL and keep Houston kids in Houston. Oklahoma State, I just think it's kind of like in the same boat of Arkansas.
Right. So we're talking a little bit of candidates. All these openings come up, but obviously somebody's got to take them. We mentioned Kiffin taking LSU, Florida, whatever job offers him the most money. Mentioned Bob Chesney coming out of JMU, winning with all the winning at JMU still with the crater that Cignetti left. But also, I think there's a couple of, at least an interesting candidate, Brian Hartline, offensive coordinator, wide receivers coach at Ohio State. He's their best recruiter. Obviously, just look at the NFL and see all the receivers that he's put through. I don't know if he gets I don't know if he gets Oklahoma State or whatever, a job that large or whatever it may be. It may be like he gets the USF job after Go Lesh leaves it or whatever the case may be. But who are some of these candidates, even if I don't have them listed here? Where are some of these who are some of these guys that are going to catch some of these spots?
Yeah, I do think Alex Golesh and what he's been able to do, I think he's definitely a candidate for somebody to move up. I would even argue with if Joey McGuire can end up winning this, and there's a team out there in like maybe Arkansas that's like, hey, we think that we can NIL this thing too. Like we think we just need a recruiter. We need a guy who's tied into Texas that we can bring some kids in. I think that's a dark horse candidate for me for the Arkansas job. And people are like that, but why would he leave Tech to go to Arkansas? It's the SEC.
It's that simple.
Look, at the end of the day, like that's the bottom line. I think too, like if you're looking at guys with head coaching experience, like Jane Franklin to me is just kind of a wild card. He's going to be able to sit and wait. He probably wants to go back into the SEC, but are you willing to go like to Arkansas? Right? Like, are you willing to do that? Or do you think that you deserve the like Florida job? I don't. I don't know. I'm trying to think who's the guy at Memphis, because that guy
Ryan Silverfield.
I think he's a dark horse. Yeah. I think he is kind of a dark horse guy, somebody that, again, that can win. I think here's the deal. And I saw this, I can't remember who said it. I think it was somebody that does something with like sports business, but they're like, what if a smart AD kind of looks around and is like, sees the situation like at LSU, like you've paid Ogeron now, you're paying Brian Kelly. What if these guys aren't like, now Brian Kelly's just a bad human being, but what if you have somebody like a Jane Franklin, who we agree is a really good coach? What if we just took off the GM hat for you, that we let me just do the player development? Like, let's go get an NFL guy, pay him a bunch of money, and
what Carolina tried to do.
Yes, but actually do it. Like, don't mess around. I think like, let's actually here's the secret sauce to Tech, is that they've actually done kind of that homework part for you. It's like they actually have a player personnel tree, and then they have a coaching tree. Those coaches there are coaching, and then they're told what players to go and get. And at the end of the day, it's really what you're doing is you're telling a kid, hey, you're going to come here, you're going to make this much money. Those people are paying you this much. We're paying you that much. Oh, okay. It's a bidding war. Here, we'll keep adding it in. And then, hey, this is what we think you are worth, and we're not going to go above that, take it or leave it. So I think like that's kind of the future of college football. And it's going to take one AD to figure it out. I think we're seeing it. But if I'm Arkansas, I'm calling Joey McGuire.
That is an interesting call, especially, and I said it a few weeks ago, but if Arkansas is serious that Rhett Lashlee is going to be their next head coach, I forgot how much money SMU has. I was just like, oh, yeah, they have all
the original.
The cash.
They are the original money guys.
They brought that Pony Express back out.
Yes, don't forget them. That's why I think that it's very interesting that there are going to be a few teams in the next decade. You know what? Really interesting conversation my dad had. So my dad is going to be 65 here this month, and he has a running backs coach at the junior high staff that literally just graduated, just got done playing. And he was like, he asked him, he's like, who do you consider a blue blood? And he was like, well, look, man, I consider this kid's a 24-year-old kid. I consider who's getting all the 5 stars. That's a blue blood to me. And who consistently does that? Well, there's only like Texas, Ohio State,
Georgia, and even Georgia's run kind of ended 2 years ago.
You know what I mean? So there's like, okay, if that's the standard, but to him, it's like, well, man, like I'm thinking USC, I'm thinking Michigan, I'm thinking, we got to add them in. Oklahoma's in there as well. And it's like, wow, really? I don't know, man.
Yeah.
And so I think like where we're at is there's going to be an adjustment period where guys my dad's age who are now in leadership, you're going to have to start going to your grandkids and saying, hey, talk to me a little bit about social media and how that's affecting you. And what are you thinking? So I think that that's going to be something that changes. The best thing that's going to change, though, is if somebody takes an NFL model and actually does it, not the North Carolina model where you don't go and get a quarterback. The Chandler Morris, the kid at Virginia was like, yeah, they didn't think I was good enough. And they went and got the Lopez kid who's good, but he doesn't fit a pro style.
There was no such thing as not good enough at North Carolina. Yeah. You needed players, Bill.
Yeah.
Go get them.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into we've spent enough time away from the NFL. Let's get into it. We've got a little bit more time today, so our show probably will run long. We're not doing this during Felix's lunch hour, so I think we're going to pivot. If you enjoy more football content, that is what we are going to bring you now. So let's get into it. The Thursday night. So we're going to book in with Thursday night game, and then we're going to end with our Thursday night preview and kind of go into the Broncos Raiders. But Ravens dominated the Dolphins. It really wasn't even close. Lamar with a 4-touchdown game. Tight ends with 3 TDs. Andrews, people were like, Andrews is going to be on the trading block. And I'm like, look, again, just making up stories just to make things up. Look,
we need things to talk about.
Yes, we need things to talk about. It's midseason. Well, and after the just an absolute snooze fest that we had in the NFL last week, this is how the NFL works. You have a snoozer of a week, and then you have all hell break loose. I thought what was really interesting about this, and we've talked about this before, A-Chain, when you look at his next-gen chart, if you've ever seen the GPS charts, only positives are green, right? So these positive EPAs, all of them are outside. That's it. He cannot run inside. If, in fact, all of the ones that are like straight down, like just an inside, like a duo or an inside zone, they were all red. So like this offense literally can only run outside. And that's not something in the NFL that's going to survive.
Yeah, no, and that's just kind of, I feel like that's kind of the crux and at least the layman's term. And I know you've called it a meme offense, but like that's kind of the problem with Mike McDaniel. There's no toughness. There's no like physicality with that team. Yeah, we can run outside. We can run the ball, but it's only on the outside, nothing between the tackles. It's just one of those things. And like the Ravens getting back on track. It was just like, yeah, this is what needed to happen on a Thursday night. And like exactly what happened is what I could have told you was going to happen because that's what needed to happen if you were a Ravens fan.
Well, and so many people were calling for Zach Orr's head. And I mean, we even talked about it the brain drain that they've had. The Dean Pease, retires after the year. Was it Pease? Was it Orr? I think we're starting to figure out Zach Orr needs time. This is a system. This is a system that's complex. He's super young. He was kind of thrust into this. I don't think he's in over his head. I think we've seen it now. So this is the 3rd consecutive game Hamilton was near the box 50% of the time. And this is the 3rd consecutive game that this defense has actually looked like a defense. And a lot of it has to go with the Alohi Gilman trade. Unlocks the defense. This always needed third safeties. A lot of people forget that Ardarius Washington got hurt. They were going to use Stark as kind of this guy when they weren't in base. They were going to bring him in. They've had other injuries up front. They traded, Jaire Alexander again. They're going to get. So I think what we're seeing here is that this really unlocks when Hamilton can play near the box and you can move him around. And that's what we're seeing. And I think that's the biggest takeaway for me from this game is that take a deep breath. You got Lamar back. You got Hamilton back where he needs to be, which is 50% in the slot.
They're the favorites in the AFC North for a reason right now. Like there's a reason why everybody believes that they're still going to be the Ravens because they got everything back. And I mean, we talk about the rest of the division as a whole, but it's the Ravens for a reason.
Well, and they're not that far out. Look, yes, the Steelers are 5-3, but I think we all agree like this is a team with only 7 points in win differential. They're really kind of like they really feel like a 500 team. And we'll talk about them here in a little bit, but I do think this is definitely doable for the Ravens now that they've kind of got everything back to where they need to be.
And it just took them half the year to do that. It just took them forever to get there. Moving forward, everybody was making a big deal out of Jordan Love's 27th birthday, just for the Packers to go out there in the ugliest uniforms possible. And I know this is a guy that you have a lot of love and respect for, Evero. What exactly did he do to a team that we thought was the best team in the NFC and maybe the best team in the NFL as a whole just last week? And I mean, I know that it was probably a look-ahead game because they have the Eagles next week, and it's the Packers. They're a young team, and so it's just all of that. But also, what did one of the best defensive minds in football do to the Packers?
Well, here's the thing that Love has always enamored a lot of people because of his arm strength. He can throw the deep ball. In fact, he leads the NFL in ADOT. So the average depth of target, I think it was like over 12 at some point. So he's essentially an anti-Aaron Rodgers at this point. Like Rodgers only throws like 5 yards down the field.
Yeah.
He's trying to like moonshot everything. So what do the Panthers do really well? Their secondary actually is not terrible. The problem with them has been their linebackers. So what you had was really what it looked like to me is they were playing a little bit more shade with the nose. And what the shade does is it really simplifies for the linebackers where their fits are going to be because now the gaps are defined. So I felt like the linebackers weren't trying to do too much. They weren't trying to do a lot of reading in the run game. Then they played their nickel, but they did it with essentially a big five. They took Wharton, who you should know that name. I think he was a former Kansas City player.
Turk Wharton, yep.
They took him. He's like 300 pounds. A lot of times guys want to put the big five away from the tight end. They said, no, we're actually going to put him on the tight end and we're going to put our edge on the other side. Another guy that they've brought up from the practice squad is a guy named Tevis Gibson. So if you're a Bears fan, you know who that is. He's kind of an ass kicker in the run game. Not going to give you a lot in pass rush, but he's going to do really well. He kind of played that other guy. So they essentially were like, look, we're going to play with 3 interior defensive linemen. We're just going to move one out to a 5 technique, really a 6, and we're on top of the tight end. We're going to control that. And then we're going to have our edge rusher opposite. We're going to have Morgan, the nickel, and we're going to take Smith Wade, our nickel, and put him at safety because he's kind of a hybrid guy. And so that's what they've really been able to do. And again, this is a Fangio adjacent defense. It's a mitigating defense. They're going to make you matriculate down the field. They did a lot of 2 high rotations. And really what it boils down to is they were able to stop the run well enough and they got Love impatient and he just started chucking it down the field. Like, I got to get my shots in. I'm not comfortable.
It's my birthday. Come on, man.
Exactly. And that to me is kind of what that was, is that they simplified the run fits for the linebackers. The linebackers finally played really well. And if you've watched the Panthers at all, that tends to be where they end up getting lost, is either in the passing game, in the intermediate, or in the run game. They're just like, well, where's your second level? And then they started with their 2 high rotations and playing everything. They were able to play everything from depth, which then is able to compress everything. Love didn't like it. They looked disjointed. And hey, the offense showed up just enough to squeak out of it.
Yeah. Now we can not skip over, but Pats Falcons was kind of just Pats Falcons. What were you expecting? The Patriots win by 1. Late miss PAT for the Falcons. My boy Young Hui. They got Parker Romo in there. Young Hui is missing, so they need to figure it out.
Yes.
Figure it out now. But speaking of Drake London has a game of a lifetime. All 3 of his touchdown catches. All of them, one more ridiculous than the one before it. And then Christian Gonzalez had a pretty decent game against him, but then everybody else couldn't do anything.
Yes.
But you have it written here, Ted McMillan and Drake London, both of them just power forwards, just go up and get the rebound in the end zone. And that's exactly what it was. But pushing forward to Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh able to get the win at home. I have this in the notes because I wrote it before the games had started. Tomlin rarely loses as a home dog. And I think especially after last week, a Tomlin coach team was not going to come out and lose against whomever they were playing. I mean, it happened to be the then 7-1 Indianapolis Colts. But the defense gets 6 turnovers in this game. And I know that that's a little bit abnormal, but at the same time, what was the Pittsburgh Steelers defense able to figure out when they needed to figure it out the most? I know that Aaron Rodgers is doing his part, but at the same time, what did the Pittsburgh Steelers defense figure out against an offense that has been playing phenomenally?
Unstoppable. Isn't it like, I mean, basically Daniel Jones has essentially broke every chart. He was like basically Mahomes. He's been looking like Mahomes in 18, where it's just like, it's really every chart is a Mahomes chart. It's just, he just broke every chart. If you are looking for a game where scheme mattered more than anything, it's this. And lo and behold, it's the old cover 3, 5-man front Steelers that what do? They come out in nickel, they run a 4-down front, and they ran nothing but 2 high. They had 46%. I think it was Next Gen said 46% of their snaps were from a 2 high shell. Not only that, Jalen Ramsey played safety the entire game. And then when they wanted to run single high, they dropped him on top of Warren. Warren, I think, had 7 targets for 5 catches, only 25 yards. So everything he caught was low. I think his longest catches were when Ramsey wasn't even guarding him. I actually would go back. I watched the film this morning. I think if you go back and look at Ramsey, I don't think he caught a ball against Ramsey. I think this is a really interesting flip. And if you're a Steelers fan, you've been waiting for this day. Like, okay, is this a one-off? I really think for the Steelers, they realized we have to win this game. We have to win this game at home. We're home dogs. We're pretty much kind of in shambles in the secondary. We got to figure this out. Porter's good, but he's handsy. Ramsey, to me, moving to safety, like, this makes total sense. Total sense. He's kind of like, think of him as almost Kyle Hamilton-esque in a coverage sense, not a tackling sense. You're not going to blitz him. He's actually not a great blitzer, even though that like Rams did.
It feels like he should be. It feels like Ramsey should be a great blitzer.
He's big. It's because he's a 6'2".
Even more so than that. He's an asshole too.
Yeah, but he's really not like that great of a blitzer. He's not Hamilton, but in terms of like coverage wise, I think that this is it. So what ended up happening is, and I actually had a really interesting conversation with our boy Danny Heifetz about this morning. We
got beef with him.
Well, the deal was like, look, you go into this game and you're expecting them to basically be the Steelers. You're going to get a lot of nickel. It's going to be a lot of cover 3 and cover 1. And then you go into it and it's like half of it is basically quarters and some Tampa sprinkled in there, and it totally messed you up. I thought they did a good job moving Benton and Hayward around inside. This is by far the worst offensive line performance for the Colts. You get 6 turnovers. You have to throw the ball. Well, what is Danny Dimes not great at? Drop back passing. You need him in the play action passing game. He couldn't do it. And this is one of those games. Look, you get 6 turnovers. You are not going to win that game. The fact that they were even close in that game, guys, this is still a team that has a 109+ point differential. There's not even like the next closest is 76, and ironically it's the Chiefs. You have the Seahawks and the Rams at 81 and 82. So like this is a team. I think it's funny, like the Ringer, they do the fart or shart. Is this like, oh, it's just a little fart, or I was like, oh, we got some problems. I think this is more or less a little bit of a hiccup. I think they threw them a curveball. Hopefully, if I'm a Steelers fan, that this is more to come. But at the end of the day, and I put this in the notes, Mike Tomlin is the Undertaker meme, like personified. Do not give up on Mike Tomlin. He's going to find a way to get a winning record. We all thought, they're going to have like a top 10 draft pick after this year. Mike Tomlin on the hot seat. No, they're probably going to make the playoffs, and they're probably going to win 10 games.
Yep, there's a reason they've only had 3 head coaches since the dawn of time.
Yep.
But the Chargers, I have this written here. The Chargers always kind of charger even when they win, because the Titans had life all day, and Joe Alt gets hurt again. Which doesn't spell good things for them moving forward. Luckily, they were playing the Titans, so they're probably going to win that game no matter if lightning struck the middle of the field. But again, Tennessee had life all day, and it just kind of was a Chargers win where it's like, are they gonna win? Oh, they do.
Nobody.
The Titans covered. The Titans covered though. Thank God.
Yeah, and nobody stood out. Even Herbert, the pick was like an absolutely atrocious pick. It was a nickel pressure. They swiped the coverage to the 3 receiver side. They ran a simple spacing, which is basically just like 2 little curls with a flat push. He didn't even see the linebacker. The linebacker literally read it the whole time, picked it off, ran it into the house. And then of course you lose Joe. I put in our notes too, like Joe Alt gets hurt. The tackles don't work. Oh, guess what? This offense isn't that great. And that's essentially what it is. The defense, again, Jesse Minter doing everything he can to keep that defense together and moving forward. And the Chargers, they're going to charge.
All right, talking about Jim Harbaugh's boy Justin Herbert, his former boy JJ McCarthy gets a win, a very very good divisional win over the Lions, and it keeps them alive. They're 5-4 now, if I'm not mistaken, or 4, whatever. They're right around 500 in that division. It's matters a lot, especially in the NFC. And I think even Kevin O'Connell was giving Kelvin Shepherd some things that Shepherd just hadn't seen because it's Kevin O'Connell, because he's a little bit different than everybody else, even within that McVay Shanahan tree. He's just a little bit different than him. But Brian Flores' defense actually looks like Brian Flores' defense when it needed to this year. So what are you expecting moving forward from the Vikings from this game particularly?
Well, I talked about it. I talked it to a couple of Vikings people last week about this, just because they're like, what the hell's wrong with the defense? And it's like, well, you don't have Andrew Van Ginkel. Cashman's been hurt. Essentially, like, this is kind of – it's a front runner defense, meaning that they need the offense to be good. And they need to have everybody on there, and they need to hit home. It's not surprising to me Andrew Van Ginkel comes back and the defense has one of its best performances. What did they do? This was a really cool schematic game as well. A lot of late rotations against Goff. So Goff loves to check at the line. As soon as he checks, they're basically bouncing in. We saw this early in the year. We mentioned this early in the year. Of course, look, when everybody was healthy on the Vikings, they were doing a lot of coverage rotations super late, doing some interesting things that they had not done. They decided to spam the Lions with cross dog pressures through the A-gap. I mean, they were doing every kind of weird little cross. They were sending them both through the A-gap sometimes. Sometimes they were picking the running back and trying to layer over top of it. They just essentially were like, Goff hates pressure in his face. That's what we're going to do. We're not afraid of you scrambling because you're not a scrambling quarterback. And I think when you have a guy like Goff, you can do that. Is if I know you're going to be a statue, or I know that you're going to try and throw the ball, I'm going to send pressure right in your face, because I'm not going to let you step up into the pocket and then just launch the ball to St. Brown. Now, again, a performance where if you look at it on paper, everything looks really good, except the Lions couldn't run the ball. The Vikings run defense showed back up. I do think you're right. This is a spicy team at the midpoint at 4-4. This is a really interesting conference because the Packers look like they're kind of good because they're 5-2.
But are they? Are they?
But you have now a roadmap. I think that you now have a roadmap that has been laid by the Panthers of like, hey, this is how you can kind of mess with Jordan Love. You have Detroit that's now 5-3. The Bears to me are like a drunk 5-3. Like they landed a few haymakers and they got home safely. You know what I mean? Like, do we trust them at 5-3? And then you have the Vikings that now, if they're healthy going forward, I think that that's kind of a dark horse team to kind of win. I still think the Packers and the Lions are going to end up being the top two here. But the Bears and the Vikings are teams that I don't necessarily want to play on a regular basis.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the absolute ugliest game of the week, and like just how the Packers had ugly uniforms. This was the grimiest game to everybody but you. Good God. And I like how we have these games are happening at the same time. We know which ones we were locked into.
Yes.
Bears, Bengals for me. You had Broncos, Texans, the battle of the best defenses. Unfortunately, CJ Stroud goes out with a concussion throughout the game. Davis Mills plays like Davis Mills because it was just going to be an ugly game. Broncos come out with the victory, field goal as the buzzer sounded. But it was, Cody, a very, very ugly game.
Yeah, it was. Some of the play calling I know is just it's a little bit of a struggle. I will have to say this. Sean Payton is not afraid to have Bo Nix throw the ball deep. And one of Bo Nix,
he's just flinging it, dude. I mean, he just lets him fling it.
Now, he missed early throwing the ball inside. He didn't throw it to the sideline. Like, it just kind of was – he was a little bit off target on him. But then he comes back and he gets both of his touchdowns are long bombs. Stingley basically locked down Sutton the whole game except for the 130-yard touchdown bomb to him. Sutton's always going to fight. One of the most underrated receivers. But I do agree with you. Like you have in the notes, like Bo Nix did not play very well. It was hard. Everything to me in this offense is just very, very hard. I am glad that the run game was there. This to me was like who had the better quarterback at the end of the day. And I don't necessarily know if Stroud in this game wins this game. I still think that the Broncos ended up and were the better team in this because the problem is not Davis Mills. It's the red zone offense versus the best red zone defense. I mean, They couldn't do anything. 5 field goals? Look, if you kick 5 field goals and the other team scores at least 1 touchdown, you're assuming you're probably just not going to win that game.
Yeah. All right. Now to the sexiest game of
You
the
mean
entire
the drunkest game.
Yeah, the drunken sex. No. So Bears and Bengals, 47-42, final score. It was just ridiculous all over the place because and I think the most interesting part of the game was Zach Taylor challenging that late challenge that he had because they were down at the 1. They have it down at the 1. He calls a challenge saying that it's a fumble or whatever it was. Referee's like, no, never mind. Bears score. Bears scored a touchdown.
You can't make that up. You just cannot make that up. I mean,
it was my favorite thing in the world. Like, there's not a better thing in the world where you thought you had a fumble and the referees was like, no. The opposite happened.
This is also a game where, because we've talked about this before, does Zach Taylor get fired? But this is also a game where it proves, though, that, are you really going to fire him because your GM and your ownership just will not sign defensive players? This defense, you knew this secondary was so bad. Dude, and don't give me excuses because if you go and you look at Indianapolis, they don't have any corners either. They got Kenny Moore and then Shardarius Ward.
You have your defensive coordinator.
And then they have all he needed. It just proves all he needed was adequate players. That's all he needed. You have absolutely no secondary. You text me, you tweeted at me. I was like, I know that Cody's over here just crying about the tackling. Look, I think that's the other thing too, is you can just tell that there's not a lot of fundamentals going on. It's a lot of guys doing their own thing. You see it after the running back was like, I don't understand why we couldn't have just won that game. You can see them, they're throwing the defense.
Jamar Chase in the tunnel. He's just like one stop. And it is, if I'm Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Flacco, individually, I'm pissed off because I'm playing the best football of my life, aside from last year if I'm Jamar Chase, because I won the Triple Crown. What the hell are you doing?
How about Flacco with the Browns is the worst quarterback in the NFL? He goes there.
Yeah, bench.
It's players over. Yeah, because he's throwing to Jerry Jeudy. So Mike.
And just to mention, Colson Loveland's touchdown to end the game, I had Bears -3.5. Beautiful. Because all they needed was Caleb threw the first down for the field goal to at least get the field goal to win the game. No. Housed it for the touchdown. It was beautiful.
That to me is why the Bears, I can't figure out if at 5-3, should they be 5-3 or should they be 3-5? I can't figure out. You know what I mean? I think that this is another team that's probably a year out. I think Dennis Allen is the correct pick. They have nobody in the secondary. So I think that secondary is going to have to get fixed. But dude,
and I think the craziest part that gets lost in all of this, the Bengals recovered an onside kick and scored a touchdown. That's the first time that's happened in the NFL in 5 years.
Yes.
In 5 years.
So to me, it's I don't know. This to me is more telling. A little bit of me is look, Bears, press pause if you're a Bears fan. Yeah, you're 5-3 in this division, but are we headed for what's happened the past 2 years where you look really good at the beginning and then you end up just not being very good at the end? This is, man, what a game. What a game.
All right, we can talk about Sunday Night Football real quick because it was really, and I just want to touch on Jaden's, I call him Jalen Daniels, and Jalen and Jaden Daniels. KU's quarterback, LSU's quarterback, who won the Heisman Trophy, played at the same time. I was covering KU football at the same it's just breaking my head. But either way, Sunday Night Football, Jaden gets hurt.
Got this.
He had that weird elbow thing always because it's just what happened. But then he snaps his arm in half, it looks like.
Yeah,
playing late in the game already as it is. Is that coaching malpractice to you, Coach Cody?
Well, I mean, look, give it to Quinn for taking ownership of it. I think there's a point where you want to play these guys into the third quarter, but this was a game where, he's already kind of been hurt. We've kind of mentioned this. This is one of those.
This is his first game back.
Where it's kind of hey, look, this did not go as planned. Let's just get Marcus Mariota in there to go in the second half. Like, we're not going to probably come back. This isn't going to be one of those crazy games. Look, you're not going to come back on the Seahawks. Mike McDonald is not.
He ain't going to let it happen.
Going to let that happen. This was over by the first quarter. He's hurt now. Your season's pretty much done. I think that offense, too, has kind of run its course. Kingsbury's going to need to reinvent it a little bit more. You know, you kind of had that addition of, like, you have the power run game, but everything's an RPO. If he's not running the ball, which you don't want him running the ball, obviously, you kind of need to add a little bit more there. Mike McDonald, to me, I think that's the name. Look, this defense is legit. Legit. And they're even talking about, like, getting rid of Reek Woolen. Josh Joe, he's got Josh Joe playing as like an above average corner. Look, if there was somebody who I had a target on for Seattle of, like, you do not want to play that guy. Look, they were actively trying not to play him. They've had to play him. He ends up stepping up. If you got him going, I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence is getting sacks. He couldn't get sacks even with Micah Parsons opposite of him. So I think they do a really good job. I wrote about Mike McDonald this Monday. They have one of the lowest blitz rates, but when they blitz, they are designed so well that they typically hit. We saw some of the greatest hits against the Commanders last night. Just really good stuff by them. Let's get in. You tried to skip over this game.
I wasn't trying to skip over. I just knew this was the main event. I was just trying to tuck it at the end.
You're right.
No. I promise. I'm pissed. Don't get me wrong. I am big mad, but I wasn't gonna do that. I'm a football fan first, then Chiefs fan.
All right,
let's
dig into it. Let's dig into it. Let's have a conversation, because I actually think this game is concerning for the Chiefs, and I'll explain why. This is the first time in this series, and you can go back, and I did the research on this before we came on. So James Cook, the rumor around this is, like, look, the Chiefs, the Bills have always kind of been able to run on the Chiefs. Not like this. James Cook goes for 100 yards. First time since Christmas of 2023. The last time, here, I'm going to go through it. 2021, Zach Moss, 11 carries, 59 yards. 2022, Singletary. You could argue that this was similar, not the same. 17 carries, 85 rushing yards, 0 TDs. Cook in 2023, 10 carries, 58 yards, no TDs. 2024, 9 carries, 20 yards, but he had the 2 TDs in the goal line. Outside of the goal line, everything was there. He goes off for 100 yards. This is a 12 personnel team with really one true tight end. They ran at the Chiefs. This is a base personnel defense. This is a team that is really good at stopping the run, and they couldn't stop it. That's concerning to me. That's the biggest concern, my biggest takeaway.
I think you are right to be concerned on that front for another couple of weeks. In that, I think that we've seen the best of the Chiefs that we've seen in the last 3 weeks over the last 3 years in the last 3 weeks. And I think the play to air, the series to end the first half was very telling, where they were like, we're not going to score. It's not like we're not going to score a touchdown here, but then coming out of halftime, they're like, all right, they have a 3-and-out right after halftime. And I feel like, yeah, they just kind of threw it into gear, kind of like they do with Buffalo every year. Like Buffalo wins every regular season game, doesn't win in the postseason for one reason or another. And I think Kansas City, all of what you said is right about the defense. You're able to run on this defense. But I think that's been true for a couple of years now, and it just hasn't been like Derrick Henry going off for 150 or whatever the case may be. But I think we saw the offense move the ball, and I think you should be a little worried if you're Buffalo, because with like a minute to go in the second half, or excuse me, in the first half, Kansas City got all the way down to the 1-yard line and almost scored a touchdown. You should be worried in that case when Patrick Mahomes needs to score a touchdown in that moment. So I think it ended up being a one-score game, and Patrick Mahomes threw the ball to Tyquan Thornton and hit him in the hands nearly for the tie. So like it felt like a Bills-Chiefs game like it usually does.
Yes.
Obviously, it sucks to lose a game, especially if you're the Chiefs and you're currently where you are at 5-4 now, and you've already lost too many games as it is. But at the same time, I hate that it's a loss to the Bills, but also they lose to the Bills every year in a similar way too.
That's always argument. Like, does this game really matter? I think it matters. Yeah. It matters a little bit just because the Broncos won. The Chargers are still continuing to win. Yes. So there's a little bit more pressure there. I think big picture, I agree with you. We talked too about the Bills defense is an issue. Hoyt comes back. They have that great third down package. They're getting a lot of pressure. He
tears his Achilles immediately.
He gets hurt deep into the third quarter. That changes a bunch of stuff for the Bills. So, like, I'm with you. Like, both of these teams, I think, have major issues on defense. But I will say with the Bills, Maxwell Hairston gets the pick. Cole Bishop looked like an absolute beast last night. That's got to feel good. I think Maxwell Hairston can end up taking over for Tre'Davious White eventually. I think Cole Bishop, that's always been like, look, he played at Utah where they only ran cover 3 and they ran cover 1, and he was always near the box. You have to give him a little bit of time, and I think he's finally got it to where he's now a guy that can be on there. I think at the end of the day, they got bullied in the trenches. Another thing that I have concern with, they kicked a field goal on the 1 yard line.
Mm-hmm.
If that doesn't tell you what they feel like, but are you surprised?
It was my only problem with that one is it's the end of the half. I know they kicked the field goal on the 1 yard line. It was either that or no points, and like they just keep it pushing. So like I understand.
I get that. I just think it's a bad. Like I just think like.
Hold on. This thing didn't make the notes. They went for it on 4th and 17 and got it.
Yes. Okay. Let's talk about that play. Okay. No, it's in the notes. It's in the notes. I said they're still up to their same BS. They basically didn't block Bosa to make him think it was a screen so that Mahomes would have enough time to throw it.
We're winning the Super Bowl again. I don't care. We're back. Sure, we lost to the Bills. We're back.
Bosa literally, you could see, he was like, what? This is a trap, because like that's the one thing, like at the NFL level, those guys can feel those traps. Like if they don't get blocked, like Bosa's like, wait a second, why is no
something's
one
about that? Yeah.
And Mahomes like even looks at him like, oh crap, and then he turns around, he's like, fake to you, I'm not really scrambling. Woo! Just throw a freaking grenade for a 4th and 17. Like they play like again. Only the Chiefs have a play for 4th and 17, but can't convert on a 3rd and 1 on the rest.
And that's why it's not that concerning, because they got the 4th and 17 later. I know that they didn't win the game, whatever. That's why it's not as concerning as it could be. I know James Cook had a great game. James Cook is having a great season. And Josh Allen didn't have that great of a game on the ground. And so I think that's some of it too. They had a big lead for a good chunk of that game. So I think they were on the ground, or at least trying to be, for a little bit more of it. It's just, I know it's a loss. It is concerning, and it's the Kansas City Chiefs who are 5-4 currently, the same record as the Carolina Panthers of all teams. But it is okay. I will be okay, and they'll figure it out. They've got 2 games against the stupid ass Broncos. They'll be fine.
Well, and I think too, like I think anybody that says, "Hey, would you rather take the 5-4 Chiefs over the 5-3 Steelers going forward?" I think everybody chooses Chiefs. So I just think like when you get in these games, you do have to look at big picture, because I think they were talking to Marvin Lewis I was listening to the radio, Marvin Lewis on the radio, who, by the way, Bengals went to the playoffs like in 9 out of 10 years while he was there.
Never won the playoff game.
You do take these games a little bit more because it does actually have to do with kind of the end result. I think the Chiefs feel like they can get on a roll. I've seen it.
We know they can.
You know they can. All right, let's round up. We have the 49ers beating the Giants. I don't think there's nothing really there other than Williams, their first-round draft pick, has an ACL tear. Again, dude, somebody has cursed the 49ers. Someone needs to study that. Rams annihilate. The Saints are by far look, who wins, Saints or Titans?
We don't because we have to watch it if that's the game. But probably the Titans, because Cam Ward's just like, you know what, let's throw it up there.
I like Cam Ward. He's throwing to no one. He's throwing to no one with barely any run game at all. And then we have Jacksonville steals a win from the Raiders.
You know what? I believe that the Jags were 3.5 points better than the Raiders. Never again.
Yeah, the Jacksonville, I can't figure out. Again, it's just the whole turbulence. I can't figure out if this defense wants to be good or not. They can't figure it out either. All right, that brings us to, nice segue to your favorite matchup. Broncos. Look, it's the only time all year that you will root for the Broncos, just because as you know, being an AFC West guy, everybody hates the Raiders. So
I love the Raiders. If the Raiders are playing any other team that's not the Chiefs in the first place, go Raiders.
Dude, he's lying, guys. He's lying. He's just saying that to try and make me look bad. It's not true.
A little bit, but then knowing that the Chiefs have you on a bye week after a bye next week, back-to-back AFC West losses.
Stop. Anyway, you just don't. It's only look. If the Broncos weren't in first place, you'd be saying something completely different. So
you damn Skippy.
Back-to-back grimy wins. I do agree with you. Everything's hard. I just don't know. I feel like getting the Raiders after this. It's in Denver as well. After like a heartbreaking loss. I mean, Max Crosby was basically like, trade me. Without saying it out loud. He's basically like, look, guys, Tuesday morning, I better wake up and I'm like playing for a contender. They need to just trade him to, like, I don't know what the 49ers situation is over there. Just trade him to.
He's best friends with Patrick Mahomes. Just trade him across the division. Just do it.
Yeah, do pull.
We can't get a pass rush with 4 men. So I mean, like, we do need some help with the pass rush if we're all being honest. But
I know, and I hate it too because like we even talked about this at the beginning of the year. Like this actually like. I actually like the Raiders setup. I like what they like. I like everything about them. The problem that you just run into is just players over plays. I think you have two really good coordinators. Patrick Graham to me has always been underrated. I know you as a Chiefs fan know Patrick Graham is no slouch to go up. He's kind of like a Lou Anarumo. Like he's going to give you something that you haven't seen. They just have kind of ran out. Like, look, Max Crosby can only do so much. He can only rush the passer and stop the run so much. At some other point, you have to show up. I think the Broncos win this. I don't think it's relatively close. I mean, what's your thoughts on this?
I think it is ugly, but I think it's probably like a 24-10 win for Denver, where it's like, yeah, it felt comfortable for most of it, where it's like, yeah, they were up 17-3 for a ton of it, but like,
yeah,
that's partially because I don't have that much belief in Bo Nix to put up a ton of points against defense that's slightly better than the Dallas Cowboys.
That's not. I was going to say not the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah.
And so and like you're saying, Patrick Graham, the Raiders, I like their setup, but they're just the Raiders. I think it'll be like 24-10, 27-10 or something.
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, it's an AFC. That's the other thing. I'm not saying that this is going to be a blowout, but I think it's going to be one of those where like, yeah, it's like 20 set or it's like 24-17, 24-14, but it's like 17-14 for like a majority of it, and then Denver scores late to ice.
It's like, all right, Cortland Sutton for 65 yards.
Yeah,
all right,
something stupid like that, or actually they'll throw it to the Harvey kid out of the backfield. Hey,
he's been having a great couple of weeks too.
Had an awesome wheel route touchdown. Speaking of wheel routes, and we'll end on this. If you are listening and you are a coach, I'm telling you right now, tight end wheels are coming. I think we saw more tight end wheel touchdowns this past week. It's coming. So be looking out for that. All right. Make sure. I got Bobo. I got Bobo Alexander telling me that the show's over, so we got to go. So hey, make sure to like, subscribe, review, tell your friends. This is a football show that talks football. Make sure to go out and watch football. Bobo tells me I got to go, so let's get out of here, Phil.
See you guys later. All right.